It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Actually, scratch that first part. The year was 2015. I, Nikhil Pandey, was on the cusp of graduating from college with a degree in chemistry. A pretty practical, respectable degree, one that cost me a small fortune and years of happiness. And like so many soon-to-be graduates, I was on the hunt for my first job. First there was hope, optimism, then a pattern of discontent began to emerge. One thing every job aspirant notices is the steep requirements for every position. Sure, if you want to be a marketing manager or a senior level consultant with a six-figure salary, it makes sense that you need years of experience, solid credentials under your belt. But even entry-level positions with paltry compensation asked for a year or two or up to 5 years of experience. Pardon my French, but who the do these people think they are? Even the PhD grads were living off ramen noodles. The US economy today is in a labor shortage. If you follow any finance YouTube channel, you might have noticed video trends pointing at a collective resignation in 2021. US businesses have gone to great lengths to deal with this labor shortage, hiking wages, recruiting retirees back into the workforce, and even reassigning office staff into frontline jobs. So you wouldn't think entry-level applicants would have much trouble finding work these days. But even in late 2021, many still find it difficult to land the right position because of traditional work experience requirements. Work today suffers from what's called experience inflation. As noted by a survey by Skynova, which is a small business invoicing platform, Skynova surveyed 1,018 entry-level job seekers and 518 hiring managers across various industries and found that the majority of listings for entry-level positions required 3 or more years of related work experience, a major deterrent for some applicants, even in a tight labor market. It's a very discouraging feeling to be seeking work and then always feeling incompetent, always feeling like you don't have the experience for any position that you're applying for. Before quitting my own software job in August of this year, I had been in the corporate world for 3 years, and before that had been a teacher for 2 years. And one of the reasons that I even got into teaching was because it was one of the few offers I got. I felt I'd done everything right. Getting an offer seemed completely out of reach. There's clearly a discrepancy between what entry-level hiring looks like to hiring managers and what it looks like from the job seeker's perspective. In Skynova's research, job seekers estimated that more than half of the positions that they were looking at that they applied for asked for more than 3 years of experience, as people just feel more and more boxed out of positions that would actually have what they would say is adequate compensation. When asked what their top job search frustrations were, entry-level job seekers cited employers asking for inappropriate levels of job experience and insufficient pay for the required job responsibilities as their biggest grievances. High experience requirements for entry-level positions aren't a new problem. A 2019 study showed that 35% of LinkedIn job postings required 3 or more years of experience, but the problem has only worsened since then, with some estimating that up to 55% of job positions in the corporate world require 3 or more years of experience. How are you supposed to get the experience if you can't get the job? The tides are now shifting though. A research note from Goldman Sachs found that about 5 million people have left the workforce during the pandemic. Of those 5 million, 3.1 million are over the age of 55. These include 1.5 million early retirees and 1 million just regular retirement people, which means that the latter half, about 2.5 million people, will not be returning to the workforce, ever. Half the labor force that is left this year will not be returning. This is to say that the problem of the job labor shortage probably won't be resolved anytime soon, and it's time for hiring managers to consider a new approach. It isn't wrong for companies to want to hire experienced workers, and something that's very attractive when you're hiring is years of related experience.
Do you mean that you lied on your application?
No. Oh yes. I like to get my foot in the door.
But there's clearly a discrepancy between what companies and hiring managers think is worthy of an entry-level position salary and what people in the workforce feel would be adequate compensation for their experience. There's always going to be a tension between employers and employees when it comes to money. A YouTube friend of mine, Joshua Fluke, he's actually built an entire channel off of talking about the hypocrisy in the corporate world, especially when it comes to compensation, a lack of loyalty anymore, and time respected. And I think that's very sad, because I think if there's a person who wants to work hard, learn the relevant skills related to a position, they should at least have a chance to enter the doors, literally get an entry-level job, but sadly, I'm beginning to think that this has gotten more and more rare. I do, however, want to share a few tips that I've picked up over the last few years while working in the corporate world. I never got too high on the corporate ladder, but I did spend 3 years working in tech, and the latter 2 years were in a great position with a great company. My later years in the corporate world were definitely more successful than my first few. The first few, it was desperately hard to find a job. And then once I got 2 to 3 years of experience under my belt, I noticed that it was easier for me to get a job. It was easier to get good compensation. And if I ever wanted to aggressively look for a new position, I can imagine it would have been much easier. But what about for those people starting out, trying to get an entry-level job? I have 3 tips to share with how to deal with this experience paradox. The first is to seek online certifications and technology apprenticeships. This, of course, is more relevant to the technology industries, STEM fields. That was the field I was in, so I'm speaking to that, but I do think it's probably relevant in other career paths as well. Now, non-linear career paths are getting a little bit more respect. Granted, there's still a lot of job positions that require you to have a bachelor's degree, and if you can't check that box, then your application is automatically discarded. But technology apprenticeships are becoming recognized as alternative paths to launching a tech career, and some companies, like Google, have launched their own academies over the last 8 years, and they are offering chances for you to get online certifications that are seen as related experience. When I wanted to get involved with Salesforce, I immediately began trying to get certificates that I could attain. Some certifications I was able to attain in a very short period of time, and then I just used those certifications to pad my resume. These came from HubSpot, Google's Academy, and Salesforce's own training academy called Trailheads. There's lots of online academies now with nano degrees. You can get these nano degrees and then potentially check that box of getting a degree that'll hopefully get you not auto-discarded with some of these positions. Udacity and Pluralsight have some nano degrees that I would vouch for. I've taken some of these classes myself, and you can get proper training like project-based learning in industries that are growing that will have great salaries, like cybersecurity. If you want to maybe get a Salesforce job like I did, my first entry into that career was getting 2 certificates: Salesforce's Marketing Cloud Email Specialist certification and their Admin Cert. I also got just extensive badges on Salesforce Trailheads, their learning platform. I got 50,000 points, and I think that actually gave me a little bit of edge in getting my first position. The second tip is to freelance. I used to be terrified of freelancing, but in many ways, it is the truest way to get good at a skill. Inherently, the value of an employee in a business is less than what they would be worth in the marketplace, because if someone's hiring you, you're making the business more money than you're being paid. That's how it works. So if you're working all the hours you're working, you are by definition getting less than what you would get in a free market, which is why freelancing is so powerful. You can charge much more, and importantly, build up a body of clients that you can later use to build a portfolio that you could show a future employer if you want to go the more stable career working for a boss route. And now, how do you get your first client? I would say offer to do free work for a trial period for people you know, friends and family, and in return just ask for their written feedback or endorsement on LinkedIn. For a lot of the apps and services that you and I download, there's often a 7-day or 30-day free trial. And why is this? So that you can try out that product and service to buy into it, and then if you like it, later become part of their paid clientele. On this note, a quick word here from the sponsor of today's video, which is Grammarly. Grammarly is rolling out a new all-in-one desktop app experience. With Grammarly for Windows and Grammarly for Mac, users will see real-time writing feedback in a wider range of apps and programs than ever before. Anyone who wants to write better, and writing better is a very powerful skill in the 21st century. I've been using Grammarly for about 7 months now, and not only has it made my writing better when it comes to writing YouTube scripts, but I also have become more efficient in sending out emails, responding to people. Use it in your browser, on Discord, on Slack. It couldn't be easier to use. Once it's set up, just start writing. There's vocabulary suggestions, which helps you improve your vocabulary, replace boring or bland words with more exciting and effective ones. Clarity suggestions, which helps you cut down on unnecessary words to help you speak in a more clear, concise manner. If your message is long enough, 150 characters or more, a tone emoji will appear, and you can click to learn about more of the tone of your message. Go to Grammarly.com/Captain Sinbad to sign up for a free account and get 20% off of Grammarly Premium today. I only use a handful of productivity apps and productivity-related browser extensions, but this is one that I absolutely love, so I couldn't recommend them enough. The last idea I want to share is that you should always be on the hunt for your next opportunity, and you should not be afraid to ask for a raise. One time I was actually chatting with a colleague of mine over Zoom. It was one of the few times in my fully remote tech job where I was chewing the cud with a colleague of mine as friends. And at some point we started talking about money because he was telling me about Bitcoin and crypto, all these things I don't understand. And he asked me, you know, what my salary was. Him being a far better developer than me and being with the company for many more years than me. And I was surprised that I was being paid more than him. And that's just because when I got my job offer, I asked for more money. I just had the instinct to ask for more money. I think often when we are trying to get our first position, we undervalue ourselves. So one of the 2 recommendations I would give in this regard is to just be comfortable asking for more money. You have to create this inner identity that you are someone capable of earning the kind of money you want to make. And the second piece of advice is to always be looking for your next opportunity. Always be looking for that way to advance your career. One of my favorite moments in this book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, is the anecdote of the author going on a plane for the first time. He didn't go on a plane until he was like in his 20s, and he met a very successful businessman. When Scott Adams, the author of the book, asked that businessman for advice, he said, "As soon as I got a job, I immediately began looking for a better one." Some might cry out, well, what about company loyalty? I actually, despite some of the things I've said, do believe in loyalty a little bit, in the sense that I would never want to leave a job position if I can help it without tying up loose ends to leave it in a messy fashion. But that's as far as my loyalty goes. In truth, we're all the CEOs of our own personal careers. That's how you have to see yourself, as a CEO, even if you work for someone else. And if you want to rise up and grow, especially if you manage to get into one of those early positions that don't pay well, that's marked as entry level but requires you to take on a ton of responsibilities or doesn't adequately compensate you, what's the use of loyalty in that? Always be on the lookout for another opportunity that pays better or helps you learn more. Why not? In the immortal words of Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jerry Maguire, show me the money.
Show me the money.